Hello all. This is Dr. Amrita Priyam, Assistant Professor, Modern College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Shivajinagar, Pune. Today I am going to discuss on the topic Malthus theory of population, which comes under demography. As we can see in the slides, into the Malthus theory of population, the main content will be introduction, then statement of the theory, then what are the assumptions of the theory given by Malthus, the explanation of the theory, criticisms of the theory, along with conclusion. Starting with the introduction, the history of demography may be traced about centuries back. And the real founder of demography, if we talk about, it's Sir John Grant. But later on, this particular branch of demography was refined by Archie Gillard. As we can see here, Archie Gillard also used the word demography in his very famous book, Elements de Statistique Humaine and Demographic Compres. Now, if we talk about demography, what it is and from where, what is the origin of demography, we can see that the word demography is derived from two Greek words, demas and grapho, which means to draw or write about the people. Its meaning, that is, the meaning of demography is to draw or write about the people. And in the present scenario, if we check, the branch of demography has become an important branch. Demography is a statistical study of both qualitative and quantitative aspects, which analyzes size, structure, and distribution of human population. Hence, demography, we can say it is a study of human population. Now, moving on to the Malthus theory of population, which is the main topic we have to discuss over here. If we talk about the theory of population or the Malthus theory, we can say it was given by the famous demographer T.R. Malthus. He expressed his theory in his famous book, An Essay on the Principle of Population, as it affects the future improvement of society, which is very true. So this was the introduction part of the theory, along with the explanation of demography, from where the word demography has been origined. Now, if we switch on to the statement of the theory, the statement which was given by Sir T.R. Malthus in his famous book, it was that Malthus states that if population increases and when it is unchecked, it increases in a geometrical ratio, as we can see the numbers, that is doubling, that is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, etc. And the subsistence or the food supply. Subsistence, he has, Sir T.R. Malthus has been given the name of food supply, which increases in arithmetic ratio, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the basic statement of the theory which is given by T.R. Malthus in his theory of population. Next, if we check about the assumption of the theory given by Sir T.R. Malthus, we can see that the first assumption is Malthus' principle of population is based on the following principles, assumptions. First is food is necessary to the existence of man. We all know that food is very necessary for the existence of man. The second assumption what Malthus has given is that there is a direct relationship between standard of living and childbearing. This is the second assumption of the theory. So these two are the basic assumption of the Malthus theory of population. Moving on to the explanation of the theory, if we check about in the other slide, we can see the two graphs over here into the explanation of the theory. In this graph, the first panel of the figure, we can clearly see that into the x-axis we have time period, in the y-axis we have population in crores, which increases in geometric progression, that is 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 8, 10, what we mentioned earlier. Now in the figure we can see that RP curve, which is the population curve derived from both the axes. So in if we just check that the time period, like for example into the first year the population was like 2 crores. The other year, when the years are gradually increasing, like from the first to second year, the population again increases, that is into the geometrical ratio from 2 to 4. So this is the stage of the first panel of the figure, which states that population increases at geometric progression. And if we see panel B of the figure over here, we can clearly see that into the x-axis again we have the time period into years. On y-axis we have food supply, as I mentioned earlier, that is subsistence, basic subsistence, and it is increasing in arithmetic progression, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the graph above in panel B of the figure we can see that the food supply or subsistence is increasing in arithmetic progression as the number of years is passing on by. And the 45-degree angle, which is shown in panel B of the figure, is the line from the 45-degree angle of line OF shows the directly proportionate relationship between food supply and the time period. So into this we can see in this two graphs we can make out that the population, if unchecked, increases in geometric progression, and subsistence or food supply increases in arithmetic progression. Now this two graph creates imbalance. We can see that imbalance in the other graph, which is shown in the other slide. We can clearly see that on the x-axis we have food supply and on the y-axis we have population. So we can see that food supply is increasing into arithmetic progression 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the population unchecked is in doubling, is increasing double the times, that is into geometric progression, that is 2, 4, like that we can just see in this particular graph. So this is creating imbalance into the economy. Now in order to resist this imbalance, Malthus has given two checks, that is positive checks and preventive checks. We can see in the PPT slide. Malthus has clearly provided out that there are two kinds of checks to correct, to improve this imbalance between population and food supply. Now we can just talk about what are these two checks. One is positive checks and the other one is your preventive checks. If we talk about positive checks, Malthus puts emphasis on positive checks that acts to increase the death rate. Malthus felt that the table of nature is laid for limited number of guests, and those who come uninvited must starve. And the other one is the preventive checks. Into the preventive checks, if we talk about, it can be divided into moral restraints, and the other is artificial restraints. The positive checks is related to the direct death of a person, maybe because of a disease or natural death, we can say. And the positive checks. Preventive checks, we can talk about like its moral restraints, artificial restraints, which will include all modern devices of birth control. So, if the population is checked properly, the imbalance which is created, we can see in this graph, this can be balanced to an extent. Now, the entire Malthus theory, we can see in this flow chart the Malthus theory overview as we discussed earlier. The Malthus theory of population, we can split it into two parts. The first is the same geometric progression, the population which grows if it is unchecked, and the food supply, however we have, it increases in arithmetic progression. Now, what is the way out to remove this imbalance? We have already discussed earlier, that is positive checks and preventive checks. For preventive checks, we have two parts, that is moral restraints and artificial restraints, and positive checks is related to the natural deaths which is occurring. So if these checks are adopted, then this imbalance between population and food supply can be balanced to an extent. Now, this was the overall theory, Malthus theory of population in demography. While this theory holds an important place, but still it has been criticized on several grounds. We can just check. Malthus has been targeted by few demographers, and they have criticized his theory on the basic of following ground. The first one is the basic assumption of the theory, the two basic assumptions of the theory which we had seen in the earlier PPT slides. It is not correct, it is unrealistic according to the critics. Then the other one is every increase in population is not harmful. This is the second critic given by the other demographers related to Malthus theory of population. And the other one is Malthus could not see the opening up of new era. Extensive farming with new techniques of land lead to increase in production of food. So as Malthus talks about that, in comparison to population, food supply is increasing but in a decreasing note. But according to the critics, it is not like that. The extensive farming with new technique of land lead to increase in production of food. So it can be a balanced one. So these are the criticisms given to the Malthus doctrine related to demography. Now, finally, moving on to the conclusion. Thus, in spite of several criticisms, this Malthus theory holds an important place in demography. And as Samuelson stated, nevertheless, the truth of Malthus doctrine is still important for understanding the population behavior in the parts of the globe. So, this was the overall explanation of Malthus theory of population. Thank you.